Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something truly fascinating called the architecture of belief. We're going to unpack a pretty profound framework that tackles a massive question. What is it that actually drives monumental, century-spanning human achievement? It's a huge topic, so let's just jump right into the source text.
So the source material kicks off its entire argument with a very specific quote from Surah Ash-Shura. It reads, "Those who have believed and done righteous deeds will be in the meadows of the garden and shall have whatever they desire from their Lord. That will be the supreme favor." Now the author makes a really interesting point about this text. They know that the verse right before this one talks about wrongdoers, and the author interprets this to mean that wrongdoers actually know exactly what they're doing. They deliberately choose to do wrong. But you know what's really wild here? It's the complete absence of any traditional religious symbols in this framework. The text focuses squarely on this binary idea of wrongdoers versus righteous people, and what those righteous people ultimately get as a reward.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the author takes that phrase, whatever they desire, and pushes it to its absolute limits. I mean, when the text says supreme favor, the author doesn't just see this as your standard earthly rewards. No, they interpret this as a state where the actual laws of physics can be bent or even completely broken at will. You want to travel at the speed of light? Done. Want to go peek inside a black hole and actually survive to tell the tale? Completely possible. The author argues that because these individuals desired their Lord in their current life, this supreme favor in the next life is literally the gift of boundless, impossible potential.
But this brings up a massive philosophical puzzle, and the author poses it directly. If human beings, even little kids, have a natural intuition to do good, why is belief required as a prerequisite in this text? The author points out that we all have this inbuilt fitra, which is essentially a natural disposition for basic goodness. We're naturally wired to smile, to share, to help out. So, if some people are just naturally out there doing good things, why does the text single out belief as the absolute main engine for righteous deeds?
All right, here is where the text drops what the author literally calls the bomb. Because belief is mentioned as the absolute prerequisite for these deeds, the text clearly isn't talking about something simple like sharing sweets or just being a friendly neighbor. I mean, that kind of basic goodness doesn't require any profound, deep-seated belief, right? Instead, the author argues that the text is talking about something massive. It is talking about cosmic-level goodness.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's kind of like a three-tier escalator of human action. Step 1 is the natural level. This is your everyday goodness, smiling at a stranger, buying someone a coffee, sharing a meal. Step 2 is the medium level. Now this requires real expertise and sustained effort over time. Think of entrepreneurship or running a massive nonprofit for a social cause. But step 3, that's the ultimate level. That's cosmic goodness. We're talking about action that doesn't just affect your local community. It literally echoes across centuries and alters the trajectory of humanity itself.
To really get a grasp on what fits into that ultimate level 3, the source provides some very specific historical and conceptual examples. The author lists Abraham building the Kaaba, the historical figure Dhul-Qarnayn building a massive wall to protect an entire society, and Prophet Muhammad completely rewriting the structure of civilization. The author even throws in a crazy sci-fi concept just to drive the point home. Imagine building a planetary-sized pyramid for the sole purpose of producing oxygen for future generations. These are actions on a massive, century-spanning scale that completely redefine what it means to leave a legacy.
Which brings us to a really brilliant comparison about what motivates us. Think about natural motivation for a second. Things like money, status, or even just our basic intuition to be helpful. These are perfectly fine drivers. They're absolutely capable of fueling that step 2, medium-level goodness, like building a successful company. But belief motivation, that's a completely different engine entirely. Only true, profound belief provides the sheer, raw strength and resilience you need to pull off the impossible, cosmic tasks from step 3. You definitely don't build something meant to last a millennium just to pay your monthly bills.
So, if deep belief and cosmic work are the real, ultimate goals here, where exactly does that leave traditional religious practice? Well, the author provides a highly modern and honestly incredibly relatable recontextualization of religious rituals. They contrast them directly against what they call real work.
The author illustrates this perfectly using a modern corporate metaphor. They equate prayers and standard religious rituals to a one-on-one check-in with your boss. Now, those are important. They help you connect, they align your goals, and they let you seek help if you're struggling with something. But then there are righteous deeds. This is the actual work. The meetings are really just a preparation mechanism. The true value is the tangible, physical work you go out and execute in the world outside of those meetings. And the author really leans into the absurdity of getting these two things mixed up. Just think about it in that corporate sense.
Imagine doing absolutely nothing but sitting in one-on-one meetings with your manager all day, every single day, and literally never touching any of your assigned projects. That would be crazy, right? As the author playfully points out, we were hired to actually do work. Having endless check-ins without any execution entirely misses the point of having the job in the first place.
So the crucial point is, how did we get here? The author offers a pretty stark diagnosis of a major roadblock in modern society. We currently have a situation where a lot of people are largely stuck at level 0 or level 1 goodness, basically just showing up to the meetings, while mistakenly believing they've already secured the highest possible paradise. And to be fair, the author openly admits to falling into this trap themselves, asking the really hard question, why exactly did we stop thinking big?
The text outlines this problem as a two-pronged mess. First up is personal laziness. Look, we naturally want to avoid heavy cognitive loads. It's so much easier to just blindly follow a checklist of rules and convince ourselves that checking those boxes alone secures our paradise, rather than doing the incredibly hard, exhausting work of critical thinking. Second, there is mainstream leadership. According to the author, leadership structures inherently crave control. Because of that, they naturally prefer and reward rule followers over independent thinkers who might, point out mistakes and challenge the status quo.
To break through this massive roadblock, the author delivers a profound shift in perspective. They write that true connection isn't about saying, it's all about listening. Instead of this rote, mindless recital of rules or doing all the talking during those one-on-one meetings, the absolute key is active listening. It's about paying close attention to what is actually required of us to perform real, impactful, cosmic work out in the world.
And that brings us to the author's grand finale, the overarching concept that dramatically expands our entire timeline for what it means to do good. They call it Vision 3026. The author is asking us to stretch our minds and imagine that something we create today, right now, is actively being used and benefiting someone living a full 1,000 years from now.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful, provocative final thought directly from the source material. What can we build today that will last until the year 3026? This explainer has taken us all the way from the basics of natural, everyday goodness right up to the architecture of cosmic, centuries-spanning achievement. It really forces us to look in the mirror and ask, are we just showing up for the daily check-ins, or are we actually using our belief as the engine to build something impossible? I really hope this framework inspires you to think about what your own Vision 3026 looks like. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating material, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.